I'm going to outline, and we have to thin it down. Whoops. And we're going to outline all of these lines. Okay, so outline the wing and all of the lines that are here. And then we're going to move on to something else right now because we're doing it in class form, and allow this to dry. So each one of these little doohinkies, little teardrop shapes, will all be outlined, and then we'll let it dry and we'll move on to something else so we're not running and blow drying every 2 minutes, okay? All right. So we're going to take and we're going to pull in some fine veins throughout our pieces. Now they don't have to touch or meet, but we want them nice and fine. And they will be faint, but we still want them to be a little thinner than what we have as our outline lines. So watery and nice and fine. It makes them busy, but they're going to be faint and in the background once it's done. Okay, we're going to start by base coating the black sections. Now our soft paint stays wet.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, we're doing the bee now. The body.
So we're going to move up to the next one. And you see how you, we're on the canvas bag, you really want to fill in the paint. Now make sure that you realize sometimes people have forgotten to trace the bottom piece or whatever. We want to make sure we've got that little butt like so. You're comparing to your photo as you go. And I want it to be jagged. So do you see what I mean by jagged? I don't want it to be a straight stripe base coated. So we have basically 3 sections here that are in black. And my lines have gotten a little bit brushed away over the period of time. So I'm going to have to just ad lib for it. Go. But what's important here is the jagged. I want black to kind of creep into the yellow is going to creep into the black. So once I apply those black, we're going to just do them like so. There is another little scrawny piece of black, so I may as well just come in here and apply that one too. My Lunar Blender has seen better days. I kind of abuse him a lot, so the better it is, the nicer your little jagged edges are. So I wipe my brush and I just touch into a little of my gray, and we're just going to come to the center and apply a highlight. I'll give my brush a wipe, and I'm just going to softly scratch those in so that they fade into the wet black. Okay, so that is that step.
Talk about the leg going up there?
Yes, there is a section of leg that comes up. It comes from here and goes up into the yellow. It's part of this leg. It's just easier to put it on top after because we want to be able to blend that yellow in with the brown. You'll see later. But I feel if we put that on top after, we'll be happier with it. So each leg has sections, and I'd like you to base coat them as so. Be generous with your paint. It does have little fuzzies off the edge, but we are going to go after with our liner. If you feel like you're good to do them now with your lunar, you can, but you see how I'd like them a little bit fuzzier, so I go back after. So, and then I will base coat this section. Be generous with your paint. And then he's got like just a little tiny thing there, but if you wanted to have a point, you'd probably prefer to use your round and put that on. So you can go ahead and base coat all the sections. This leg is the closest to us and it's bigger. Same thing with this one. It's a little bit bigger. It's a front leg as well. So I will apply this, and then the same way we did the dark highlight, the gray highlight, we will do on the leg. So I'll just wipe to show you. I'll pick up a tiny bit of gray. Work it in on your palette because you haven't got a big area here. So I'll put a little gray in the middle of my sections and then nice and softly just fade that into the black. Okay, so we add a tiny highlight on a few afterwards. So right now, this is the highlight we're looking for. What we're doing, we're going to take, now our wings are dry because we left time in between. So if you're doing it all in one shot, you want to make sure that you've dried your veins. So I'm applying a coat of fabric medium or textile medium, whichever you want to call it. It can be any brand, over top of my wings. This is transparent, so right now it looks a little milky, but that's just because it's wet. But that is what I'm wanting to do here. I want to create a transparent wing cover. So we have applied a coat over top with our fabric medium. So now I have fabric medium on my brush. I'm going to pick up some white paint and I'm going to apply a coat. Do you see how I'm not using a lot of paint? I'm spreading a little paint a long way. And I'm coming right out to my edges. Do you see how that is calming down all of those veins? See the difference between the two? So I have fabric medium on my brush. I pick up a bit of white. And I'm applying a coat over top. And then we're going to allow this to dry while we go on to the yellow of the body. But you see how I'm going out, right out onto those outer veins so that they'll be calmed down a bit. There is more happening to the wings. This isn't the final bit, so not to worry. If you're looking at the photo and you're thinking, well, it looks, don't panic. But I do want to have my brush having fabric medium in there while I pick up that white. So if you have to pick up a bit more fabric medium as you load your brush, that's all good. Okay. We start by base coating our body. And I just realized I'm going to put another little drop of buttermilk out. Bright yellow. Now we've done the black jagged, so the yellow's just going to come jagged into it. We're going to play back and forth after if needed, which is 90% of the time going to be needed. So again, don't be cheap with your paint. You're wanting it to remain wet so that you can blend your other colors in. So I wipe my brush. I'm going to take brown now. And I take some brown, and we're going to apply a little at that end, a little at that end, and this end here comes along the bottom and up the left side. So all of these are on the bottom, and you see I've made them a little wider. These, when I said a little, I want it narrow up there. Wipe my brush, and I'm going to just scratch to blend these in. Now remember, that's the reason we want our paint to be generous. We want that fabric paint to stay wet. If you don't have enough paint, it won't blend into it. And we want it to fade. Do you see how I just go back and forth? And I'm fading them into each other. So it looks like a golden brown. It works out perfect. I'll wipe my brush, and I'm going to pick up my cadmium yellow. And I'm going to apply that in the middle. This is my highlight yellow. And wipe my brush, and I'm just nice and softly going to blend that back and forth. So I creep those colors together. If we look at it like that, they're just going to work into each other. And I am going to take the dirty brush, touch into a little tiny bit of buttermilk, not a lot, and just add a few scratches of some light. I'm not looking to over blend that into it. I just want to have a little tiny bit. I might go for a little even stronger. Just, do you see that highlight? It makes a difference. Just that little, I'm more or less just kind of scuffing it onto there. So I'm sticking the line right in front of you. We will be bringing little black. So we will be bringing little black lines back and forth, fine ones with our liner, as you'll see in your picture, or even your zero round. Now I do have that other body piece that comes up from the other leg, part, and I'll put that on after. Right now I want to go to the other part of the yellow. So this is going to go jagged off my edge. And I do end up seeing this yellow throughout, and seeing my lines, pardon me, in my piece. It's not a big issue, not to me anyway. So I'm just filling this in right now. I'm not really going directional, but when we add these colors, we will be. Okay, so we're going to refer to the placement that we have here in our photo. So you see that we're coming from by the wing. So I just pick up a bit of the brown, and I'm going to apply it in a kind of a starburst looking effect, I'll call it. And it's just gonna fade off into that yellow. So you see there's some sections that are left. I'm gonna wash my brush because I don't want the brown now. I wash my brush, dry it off, and now I'm gonna pick up my cadmium. And I'm gonna come from these sections that are still left yellow, and I'm going to scratch that back towards the brown. We will strengthen the center of the brown once we get our highlights in and we decide where it basically is. So I've got my cadmium coming as highlights, just lightly scratching it in from the outer edge. And then I still have the dirty brush with cadmium. I'm going to pick up some buttermilk, work it in on my palette, and scratch that highlight coming inwards. Now you see in my picture, I can still see the dirty lines there. So when I clean my brush, wash my brush, because again, I don't want to have the light transferring because we're going to strengthen our brown. So you see how in our picture the brown is darker, and sometimes you might have to go back when it's dry to strengthen that up. And I can wipe my brush, pick up a little of the yellow, brown is still on the brush, and just kind of create a bit of a shadow over those dark lines. You'll still see your dark lines, but it just makes it look like the gold that's on, or the browny gold that's on the back side. Same thing here. I will never do two the same, and we are coming back with our liner after. I'm just going to put a bit more of the buttermilk, adding some black lines with our liner, some furry black lines we'll call them, and we'll be adding some yellow lines, which will be with the buttermilk and the cadmium. Okay, so that's where you're going to go. Okay, we're going to base coat his head. Now, I want the paint to be solid in the middle, but I want it to be scruffy around my edges. So you can flatten your lunar if it's in rough shape. Just kind of flatten it as you pull them out. You see how he's got a real hairy face, but I do want it solid in the inner part of the face.
So around the eye.
So yeah, we're going around his eye so that we don't have to worry about tracing it on after. So we want to keep it as close to the eye as we can to make sure that we've got his nice eyeball. And then I'm going to bring it uneven and hairy. So what I mean by uneven is I need to have some semi-solid paint coming in a few spots. Do you see? So that it's not going to create the look that he's got a buzz cut. I know he's a bee, and we're going to come along after and add just a few, you know, wispies if we need to, but that's about the extent of where I want to go with my fuzziness. The front of his face actually comes down my base coat, but I want to bring it down to a little bit more of a snout. I kind of have it traced a little bit rounder than it is. He's got a bit of a snout, if we can call it. So we have base coated his face. And we're going to wipe the brush, and I'm going to pick up my highlight on here. I want to go with, to start, my bright yellow. It's going to die down, and along the side of his face.
That's not the bright yellow though, is it?
Yeah, yeah. Along the side of his face, we will do more of a scratchy filled in highlight, where these ones are coming outwards. I'm going to wash my brush because I'm losing my yellow very easy. I'm going to put the bright yellow on my brush again, so as if I did have it on there. And I'm going to pick up some of my cadmium yellow. And you'll see that I scratch that, and I might even have to wait till he's a little drier because it's dying right in. Just scratch a little extra highlight. I think it will die down quite a bit, and we'll be coming back to put it in when it's dry because it's going to turn, I can tell. So we are going to be outlining his eye, but I feel we can do that after because we're definitely going to be able to find the outside of the eye, right? So now I can paint my eyeball, and I want it to be generous again with my paint. I don't want to see the little white canvasy holes, so we fill it in nice. I'm going to give my brush a little wipe on my rag, and then I'm going to pick up some of my gray. Now, if you don't have gray, remember you're mixing black with white, and we want it to be almost like a slate, between slate and neutral gray. So I'm going to scratch in a highlight, and it's going to die down. You'll probably come back later. And we're going to take our liner. Don't tell me I left it in there. tell me I put it away. Okay, so I'm gonna take my liner, which I'm cheating. It's actually my 0 round, but I can't find where I put my liner. But it works. To put in my highlight, and then I'll just pick up some white because I want to have a nice dot highlight, a heavy one. So that is also going to die down. So we will probably come back after. Now that I do have my round in my hand, remember I talked about you might like to come in and do these pieces with your round just to get it to a point. You see how I got not a point when I did those ones? And I'm also going to show you that we're going to, now that we got this leg on as well, we're going to take some gray. Actually, I'm going to have you dip into the white with your gray. So I've got both on there. And we're going to add a little fine highlight on what we call the joints, or where the sections touch each other. So just a little tiny fine highlight. You could be using your liner. I'd get it a little finer with that as soon as I find my liner. So you see those little lines? Like they make a difference having those on there. And if your gray is dying down, you can just come back with your round, and you see if I just touch, this will stay now because the black has dried. This black's not so dry yet, so it might die down on there. But once my eye dries, I may come back with that. Now we do outline our eye with the gray, and I really should get a liner. Do you see how it brings that, it just kind of pops that eye up a little bit, and I'll just kind of scratch a little right there. That's not too bad. I think I like that. And I do want to bring a little of my yellow, and that's dirty gray brush, doesn't matter. Just there. It's going to die down as well, but it just brings a highlight to that little bit of snout. Now we will be coming back later and pulling in little fine lines. I'm going to load my 3/8 flat shader in fabric medium. And then I've mixed a little black into brown to make almost like a bittersweet color. And I'm going to side load in that and find a spot on here to blend. And I'm going to shade along the outer and just walk it out a bit. And then I'll move to the next wing.
And sometime on Saturday, she's not.
That's not black brown. That's
No,
bittersweet.
it's like a
So dark.
bittersweet.
Okay.
I put a little black into it, but you see that it's more of a brown. And just nice and soft. So you see, I have a little on my picture here, a little brown over onto this wing as well. And this little, so, but the fabric medium is allowing me to keep it nice and soft and sheer. Now there is white going on afterwards, but we will do this and let it dry. So while it's drying, we're going to go ahead and put our little wispies on this guy. All right? So that's your mission. Go and shade those wings so it can dry. Okay. We are going to take, and you can use either your liner or your small round, and we're going to just kind of flick off. See, the liner's tough on the canvas. If my Lunar Blender was in better shape, but I've abused it, we're going to just scratch off. Do you see these little hairies? And you see how I'll just drag it past the yellow? I'm going to thin it down even more because it's just not thinned enough. There, that'll be better. But I'm not looking to see bold lines. I don't want to see really jagged lines that I've painted. I just want these to scratch off the edge. So do you see that? You'll go through and you'll do that off of your legs. Some people have done it with their lunar blender. They've brought little scratchies. You can see how those ones are, but you like the length of some to come out. But I have to make sure that I keep thinning my paint down. I still want it to come off wispy, and that happens. It does work well. Because we're on the canvas, it helps it a lot. If you're not on this type of surface, you'll notice a difference. And then we're going to take our, see how I'll pull a few black onto the yellow? I talked about that when I did it, but we'll pull a few black onto the yellow. And then I'll do the same, a few yellow onto the black. So I'll do that all up there as well. So I'm going to take my cadmium yellow and a little bit of buttermilk, and I'll pop up my highlight in the middle, because see how it's faded right down. And we'll pull a little bit cadmium, buttermilk. I might even get into the bright yellow. What the heck? But we will just pull a few lines just to jagged. Do you see? Just to create a little bit of the meld between the two. So these little furry lines. On fabric, of course, we could never do the detail that we could do on wood or canvas. Like even canvas is iffy with some of the fine that we want to put. But so we're just, see the difference for where I've added that extra highlight back in and those scratchy little lines? Like it really makes a difference. So we do that, and then we're going to take our 1/4 lunar blender. I can't find mine, so I'm using my 3/8. It's not going to make a difference. And scratch some white. So it's like I pick up the white and I just pat it on my towel a bit so that it's not solid. And I want to kind of what we'll call dry scratch some white onto this. So you'll see that the white gets heavier and it covers a lot of the wing lines again. You still see them. There, I've now got some more white. It's just that what I mean is dry scratch. I tapped it off on the towel. I want the white to show, but I don't want it to be painted white. So I haven't got as much on the brush, and I'm scratching it on here. The 3/8 is working well, actually. So do you see how that's sort of softened the wings?
Yeah.
And then we take, I'm going to use a longer liner. There, I'm going to take this guy. And I'm going to use the white, and you'll see that I'm just going to emphasize a few. This guy might be a bit too long to control. Not all. You see, it's just a couple of them. But I like the ones that are over top of the dark shading, you know? Just a few with the white. And that you're intending on this white to stay. You can see it in here. It does not have to completely cover them. It's just a highlight line on a few of them. So you'll go through and put and you can put as many as you want, but you don't want to go for every guy.
No.
And I've lost my brush. Okay. So this part is not in your notes. Oh, maybe it is. Load No, it's not. Load your brush 3/8 flat in fabric medium. I'm actually going to pick up black, blend, blend, blend. You don't want to have lots. It's going to be nice and faint. And we're going to come along the outer edge. Of course, you can shade over the black, but it makes no difference. You're not going to see it. And I'm going to shade next to his head just a bit. See how faint it is? But you see how it rounded the bottom of the back of his body? And it's very soft. There's not a lot. Like even my bright highlights dying down a bit there. It's always best to scratch that kind of stuff on when it's very dry. But, so that's where we're go. So